Cutie marks. What are cutie marks? Well, cutie marks are the marks that every pony in Equestria gets when they find their special talent. In theory, because despite this, it seems like no one knows exactly what cutie marks are. Are they random? Are they magically related? How a pony gets it in the first place? Are they inherited? What are cutie marks exactly? Well, let's find out. Like I said before, cutie marks originally were presented as the destinies or special talents of the pony that got it. For example, a pony that loves to dance will get a dance-related cutie mark, a farmer will get either the fruit or vegetable that they farm, and someone who loves music will get either an instrument or a note as their mark. But this isn't always the case, as there are other characters that have cutie marks that seemingly wouldn't make sense as destinies or even special talents. For example, bulk biceps. His cutie mark is a dumbbell, so does that mean that his destiny is to be strong? If so, he accomplished it, so does that mean that he's relegated to lifting weights his entire life? Well, no, because we see that he has other interests than just lifting weights, because I don't think lifting a dumbbell could be considered as a talent. Another one that has this problem is Silver Spoon, with her cutie mark being, well, a silver spoon. Of course, this name and cutie mark makes reference to the phrase born with a silver spoon in their mouth, which makes it hard to believe that her destiny or talent represents her being spoiled or just the fact that she doesn't need to work for anything in her life. Or what about Fleur de Lis, where her cutie mark doesn't represent her destiny or even a talent, but rather her culture? Or what about characters that deviated from their supposed destinies like Sweetfoot, someone that had a cutie mark that represented the crest of the Thracians? Which could mean that her destiny was to serve her father and her whole race. Which would be correct if it wasn't for the fact that she betrayed her father and her whole race at the end of issue 3. So you know what I mean when I say that cutie marks are complicated, and there's more and more characters that have this exact problem. So okay, maybe a cutie mark is not necessarily a destiny or a talent, but rather is passed down from generations. Now, this would make sense, right? I mean, all of the members of the Apple family have Apple cutie marks, Rainbow Dash's parents have Weather and Rainbow cutie marks just like her, Twilight's family have Galaxy-related cutie marks just like her and her brother, Sunburst has a son just like his mother, and even Starlight shares part of her cutie mark with her dad, so this theory would make the most sense, right? Well, no, because despite this theory having some plausible answers, it also has problems, like a lot of problems. One of the most glaring ones is what about the other main 6 families? Well, yeah, it is true that this theory could explain why the apples have apple cutie marks, it doesn't explain why someone like Pinkie Pie has balloons. Because wouldn't it make more sense for her to have, I don't know, a balloon-shaped stone, or maybe a rock with a ribbon around it, or literally anything else but balloons as her mark? Or what about Rarity? Her parents don't have anything to do with fashion or even crystals, so why does she? And this also goes to Sweetie Belle, where her cutie mark represents a star with a music note inside of it, something that her parents also don't have. And I know what you're probably saying, well, what if one of their ancestors had one? Well, even this angle has some huge problems, as we know that originally no one from Granny Smith's family had apples as their cutie marks, but rather they had pies, acorns, a sewing machine, a banjo, and a horseshoe. So wouldn't Bright Mac, Granny Smith's son, have any of these as his mark instead of his apple cutie mark? Because we know that it wasn't until Apple Straddle and Apple Rose joined the family that they began to get apple cutie marks. And even then, not all of the members of the Apple family have only apples in their cutie marks, because they also have ingredients, plants, and even some that don't have apples at all, yet they still are part of the Apple family. Which brings another problem with this theory. If cutie marks were genetic, wouldn't Applejack, Big Mac, or Apple Bloom have pears, or at least a reference to a pear on their marks? Because it's not like there isn't mixed fruit families in Equestria, because there are, and this problem isn't only with our main characters' families, but also goes to other ones that we saw in the show, like the Paldeos, where her daughter received a cutie mark of bones, which represented her love for paleontology, yet neither of her parents have these as their marks. Or what about Trixie's family? Well, yeah, his dad does have a cutie mark that could represent something regarding practical magic, Trixie's mom doesn't, and it's simply just a sunflower. Or what about the Shys? Both Fluttershy and Zephyr don't share any aspects of their mom's or dad's cutie marks. And the reason why is because cutie marks are not something that can be inherited or passed by generations, but rather something that is developed. Which might sound crazy, but this was something that we already heard from Twist. Twist got her cutie mark because she loved making candies, but maybe she didn't try to make candy canes specifically, which her cutie mark has. Or what about Chip Cutter? He always loved making sculptures out of his food, but he never tried to do rock sculptures, which his mark is related to. Which could mean that a pony has to prove something to get their marks. Something that we actually saw with the main six. Twilight proved that she could hatch Spike by using magic. Applejack proved to herself that all that she needed was in Sweet Apple Acres. Rainbow Dash proved that she could do the Sonic Rainbow. Fluttershy proved to herself that she could open up to someone even if they weren't ponies. Pinkie proved to herself and her family that they could have a fun time even if they weren't in the most colorful of places, and Rarity proved that true beauty isn't always in the outside, but also in the inside. But at times, a cutie mark not only reflects on what a pony needed to do to get it, but also reflects on who they really are or what they lived through. Just like we saw with Mrs. Cake, she originally was called Chiffon Swirled, which probably made reference to the fact that her family made chiffon cakes that are lighter, fancier, but less creative than normal cakes, something that she didn't like. Until Pearl Butter told her to just be creative, not only proving that she could bake a stunning cake, but also realizing she was a creative pony all along. Or what about Shining Armor? His cutie mark not only represents his strengths like resilience, courage, and bravery, but also represents his love for his family, with the 3 stars above the shield representing his mom, dad, and uncle, and the star in the middle representing Twilight herself, which could mean that he protected Twilight when she was a filly. Or what about Vinyl? Maybe she already liked music, but didn't know she was passionate about making it or even performing it, until she saw Shining Armor's concert and realized that music wasn't only a form of art, but also expression, giving a small Vinyl an outlet to express her true self. Same thing with Trixie, she's a performer, and just like her cutie mark, she needs to keep things flashy and creative to keep her audience entertained. Hence the magic wand. But what about the moon? Well, the moon can symbolize feminine power, motherhood, and nurturing, which could mean that Trixie's mom protected her a lot when she was a filly, but also encouraged her to try new things or to be herself. And that's not the only thing that the moon can represent, because just like Luna, it can also represent guidance, clarity, and insight during difficult times. Just like we saw in the show with her protecting and guiding ponies in their dreams. Or what about Sunburst? His cutie mark represents a shining sun. The sun represents energy, clarity, and power. In this case, Sunburst saves Starlight from being crushed by a stack of books using telekinesis, which is a very powerful spell for a young unicorn to use. And this isn't the only thing a sun can represent, because it can also have a double meaning, like authority and power, but also fury and destruction. Just like we saw with Celestia and Daybreaker, which is an aspect that makes cutie marks so interesting, but at the same time really sad, because they're ponies like troubleshoes that easily misunderstood their cutie mark for something bad, when in reality his cutie mark represents both aspects of good and bad luck, but it depended on the pony who got it how to interpret it. In this case, Troubleshoes believed that his cutie mark represented bad luck, so his cutie mark gave him exactly that. And cutie marks can also help us reveal the story of the pony who wields it, even if it wasn't revealed in the show, like for example, Lily Longsocks, a pony that despite not having a story, her cutie mark helps us fill in the gaps on what her potential story could be, with the hedgehog representing both aspects of isolation and loneliness, but also self-protection and self-work. Something that could lead us to believe that she had to overcome or protect herself from someone in her life, which culminated with her desire to protect others from harm. Or what about Derpy? Bubbles can represent joy, innocence, and creativity, all aspects that we saw Derpy have, but also they can represent stagnation, protection, and ignorance, which could mean that a young Derpy thought that her life would never change, quite literally meaning that she was living in a bubble. This was until her eyes got crossed, which ruined her dreams of becoming a famous flyer and forced her to seek new things to try out, but also accepting new ponies, hobbies, and opportunities into her life, which made her realize that despite life not going her way, that didn't mean that she couldn't be happy, and that sometimes you just need to try. Cutie marks are not random symbols, each one has their own values, meanings, and even powers, either granting the pony new abilities like magic, even if the pony isn't a unicorn, enhancing attributes that the pony has like strength or speed, new forms of communication like with Fluttershy, or just representing aspects of their life, personality, and family. But what do you guys think of this theory? Do you like it or do you hate it? Leave it down in the comments. And depending on how this video does, I will be totally down to analyze more cutie marks and what the meaning could be, or even what the story of the pony who wields it is. But for now, remember to like the video if you enjoyed it and consider subscribing for more MLP videos like this one. And remember to take care guys, and I'll see you in the next video.